This is government-sanctioned warfare against entire people groups. Watch this. See, because when we gauge health, sometimes we focus on things that seem to make a lot of sense, but being truly healthy is so much deeper. What I want to bring to you is the next dimension in health. Where do you go to get beyond? I watched Laura Bush on CNN with Larry King and her daughter talk about the Holy Father and how blessed he was and how peaceful he was. I mean, she spoke as if she had met Christ himself. Laura Bush, and the Bushes are, theoretically at least, Protestant. His brother is a Catholic, the former governor of Florida, Jeb Bush. But here you can see, I mean, there's a strong, he's with the rabbi, here he is with the president of the United States. Barack Obama's already met with the Pope as well in Rome. So, people get this big thing between the different presidents. I mean, you're just changing puppets. I mean,
for the faith over facts crowd.
One of the greatest diseases affecting America today is the disease of pornography addiction, pornographic addiction.
For the faith over facts crowd, the greatness of a country can, to a large degree, be measured. Here are some numbers. Infant mortality rate. America ranks 48th in the world. Overall health, 72nd. Freedom of the press, 44. Literacy, 55th. Do you realize there are 12-year-old kids in this country who can't spell the name of the teacher they're having sex with?
But this is government-sanctioned warfare against entire people groups. Watch this. The body's sitting right here. You remove the protection of your frontal lobe, and the devil has complete full access, not simply at your conscious, but at your subconscious. Music bypasses the frontal lobe. It enters, your ears are way back here, your frontal lobe is way up here. This is your temporal lobe. Music has got to reach people intellectually. But a book that helps us understand what will happen in the last days, that will transform a country like the United States of America from a country of freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How could America go from that to a country where people could actually be tortured, where people could actually be mistreated, mishandled, not because they did anything wrong, but simply because of who they are, or even worse, who we think they are. I also want to recognize the city council. Watching how they work together to make things happen and to really do what's best for the city. Really. I was given this topic, the prescription for a healthy city, but I like the topic because I want to take us somewhere with this. And I'm going to start off in the book of Luke, the 19th chapter. Don't worry, this is not a sermon. And what makes for a healthy city? Near the Shady Grove station will live 20 years longer than the typical city dweller around Capitol Heights. And they won the healthiest city 2 years in a row.
It bugs me that so many people talk like it's 1955 and we're still #1 in everything. We're not. And I take no glee in saying this because I love my country and I wish we were. But when you're number 55 in this category and number 92 in that one, you look a little silly waving the big foam #1 finger. As long as we believe being the greatest country in the world is a birthright, we'll keep coasting on the achievements of earlier generations and we'll keep losing the moral high ground. Because we may not be the biggest or the healthiest or the best educated, but we always did have one thing no other place did. We knew soccer was bullshit.
Economic growth or affluent neighborhoods, that such a city is a healthy city. But we know from cities like Los Angeles and New York and Chicago that you can have all of those things and still have sections of town that are devoid of health and of prosperity. In fact, if you look around the world, cities like Mexico City and Santiago and Chile are cities that have these incredible who's who in the city. These incredible splits in who. These incredible splits.
They're the bowels of one of the world's largest and most polluted cities, where disease runs rampant and the stench is sickening. Human excrement, toxic waste, rotting cadavers, all flowing right beneath the sidewalk. The sewers of Mexico City are as disgusting as any on Earth.
Buffet 6 Eastern. Really, whether you need it or not, it's a virtual medicine cabinet in your tap water if you live in many, many areas across the country. There's a scary new report out today. The Associated Press did a big amount of research on this, and the findings show that there were traces of prescription drugs in the water supply used by 41 million Americans in some of the biggest cities in the U.S. The list includes over-the-counter pain medication, mood stabilizers, even hormones. CNN's Elizabeth Cohen joins us now from the Medical Update Desk in Atlanta. First, explain where they found it and what it is that they found, Elizabeth.
Well, the Associated Press, Karen, they spent 5 months investigating this, and they looked at various municipal water supplies. Not all of them keep track of whether or not they're pharmaceuticals, but the ones that do, they all had traces of various medicines. I'm going to give you a list. This will give you some idea of the kinds of things that they found. For example, in Atlanta, where I am right now, they found that the water contained traces of antibiotics, blood pressure drugs, in Cincinnati, cholesterol drugs. They found a trace of one of those, and estrogen that women sometimes take for medicinal reasons. And in New York City, they found a trace of a seizure drug and an anti-anxiety drug. Now, to give you sort of the big picture, how many drugs did they find in the drinking water? In Philadelphia, they found trace amounts of 56 different drugs. In New York City, they found traces of 16 drugs, and in northern New Jersey, 13 drugs. Now, these are teeny, tiny amounts. That's really important to say right up front. It's also important to say that no one really knows what effect this has on our health, because really they're kind of just reporting this for the first time. But the Associated Press went to the E.P.A., the Environmental Protection Agency, and said, what's up here? What's going on? And I'll read you the EPA's response. The response is, we're taking it very seriously. We recognize there's a growing concern about the presence of pharmaceuticals in our water. We're evaluating the potential health effects of contaminants at low levels when they occur and how best to remove them. Now, I'm sure the question that right now is on everyone's mind is, how in the world did drugs get into our drinking water? Well, it's not very pretty, and I'll give you the sort of sanitized version. We all take drugs, and our body does not absorb 100% of everything. Some of it passes through our body, ends up in sewage. Sewage is then treated and ends up back in the water system. Karen?
Right, and I think a lot of the questions also, because it's an incomplete picture, I guess, to say, okay, so Philadelphia has caffeine and this one has this one. It's because some municipalities don't do any testing, some only test for certain compounds, and so you're not really necessarily getting a complete picture. But the other question is, what do you do with that information? Is there any way that you can find out how detrimental it may be? And also, is there any way you can avoid ingesting it if you find yourself concerned?
You really asked a couple of different great questions here, so let me take them apart. First of all, if you want to know what's in your water, you can certainly go to your water system and ask. But as you said, not everyone tests for everything. In fact, some people don't test for much at all, so you may not be getting a full answer.
Tyranny is no match for liberty. And we will safeguard America's own security against those who threaten our citizens, our friends, and our interests.